press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Namaste and welcome to this broadcast at 7 p.m. today. And today we are going to talk about mainly about Tamil Nadu elections and how it is going to shape up. Also a little bit about Kerala election. And let me introduce you to our guest tonight, Sreevidya B. Balasubramaniam. And she is actually speaking from New Zealand, and it is 2:30 a.m. in New Zealand right now. So, and Sreevidya ji is from Kerala and Tamil Nadu because she was born in Kerala, but her husband is from Tamil Nadu. So she is a very keen political observer. If you've been following this Twitter handle called Balu Sreevidya, then you would have noticed some excellent political threads on Twitter. That is how I got to know her, and I requested her that why don't you come on the platform and share all that political insight that you have. So welcome, Sreevidya ji. Welcome to Jaipur Dialogue.
Namaste, Sanjay ji. Thank you for the honor of being here in Jaipur Dialogues. Thank you for inviting me.
And let's dive into the topic straight away. We know that the elections in Tamil Nadu for almost, I think, a good part of 50 years have just been DMK and AIADMK, both with Dravidian parties. And of course, they were one and then they split. The Karunanidhi MGR split that happened. And since then, it's one or the other, one or the other. What is it in this Tamil Nadu landscape which seems to favor only these two parties? Where has Congress disappeared? Where did that little faction of Tamil Manila Congress that came up sometime, where has that disappeared? Why is it that the land is fertile only for these two parties?
Good question, Sanjay ji. You know, in certain lands, when they apply some sort of weed killers or pesticides, only certain varieties of crops can be or plants can be grown. So the Tamil Nadu land was made fertile only for a certain type of political ideology, which everyone knows is Dravidian. And the seeds were sown, I think, about 150 years ago when Calwell, rewrote some of our scriptures, and that paved way to a whole new culture of social assertion. And as many people think, it is not really E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar who invented the concept of Dravidian ideology. And you may know this, Sanjay ji, but it's for other people. It was a group of elite Vellalars who founded Dravidian ideology based on a three-pronged approach. They wanted to stop Brahminical hegemony, they wanted to stop the spread of Sanskrit, and they wanted to glorify Tamil culture and Tamil literature and Tamil language. And this happened because I think there was a bit of a substance in their coming together. They were well-educated, scholarly elites from Vellalar group, as I said earlier. And I will talk about one particular member of that group in specific. So at that time, with about 3% of population, Brahmins occupied about 42% of administrative posts in the government, in the British government. So there was enough room for the next in line people to have something against Brahminical hegemony. But that was not a mass feeling at that time, because people at the mass level actually didn't have much to do with these administrative positions. And that was what E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar did when he took over the ideology from them. They weren't overly thrilled with the radicalization of it, because this was an elite group, and as I said, they didn't mingle with the mass. It's more like a Narodnik movement in Russia. So the E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar's credit is that he took it to the masses, and he turned the stopping of Brahminical hegemony into a Brahmin hatred movement. And one particular member of this group, Maraimalai Adigal, was was very happy with this because he was a Shaiva Siddhantist. And by nature, Shaiva Siddhantists are monotheistic, and they did not like Vaishnavites bringing down the glory of God from, the all-pervading Shiva to a mere mortal, Krishna, who was a king after all, and so with Rama. So he had reasons to turn this against Vaishnavites, so he joined hands with EVR. Later on, EVR turned against him, against Shaivism, because the Peripuranam, he thought, was extolling castes. So while they did all that, and so they did have their differences, and this movement grew really, really fast because the seeds, as you know, were sown by G.U. Pope and Caldwell in the previous century, and also a bunch of missionaries from Germany and other countries. So this really grew fast. And one thing they did was, so I will talk about the political growth um, in a minute later. What happened with the castes is the first thing to think about. EVR was thinking or was talking about social justice, the Nidhi Kakshi he formed, and also the self-respect movement. Thought this was a good thing to talk about because anything against Brahmin can be construed as a, fight for justice of all castes. And it didn't translate well because the immediate beneficiaries were the dominant caste in the rural areas. And they took a good advantage of the situation of Brahminical hatred and to some extent anti-Hindu movement as well. And the Dalits were left out. So the Dalits started consolidating in the 80s, later 80s. And as a reaction to that, the other castes also started consolidating. So what EVR claimed to be, as a hero of bringing social justice, actually paved way to caste politics in the state. And he wasn't a very relevant person in politics. Nobody touched him during elections. So Annadurai had to form a new party called DMK. And this is where I would extend the comparison of Narodnik narrative, where the DMK stood where they were with their ideology of anti-Hindu, anti-Sanskrit, anti-Brahmin. Whereas the other arm of it, which was AIADMK, which broke away, MGR broke away from DMK, and they traveled with the time and adopted to changing people's, culture and aspirations and expectations. So they are more relevant today. And I will say that it's gone one full circle now because DMK now belongs to a set of elites who don't mingle with the mass. So we've actually done one full circle.
Okay, that's a very, very good explanation. And in very few words, you traveled almost the entire historical landscape of this Dravidian movement. And as you rightly said, we know that EVR wasn't a particularly edifying character, and it was in the fitness of things that many people did not want to associate with him. And that's how the DMK got formed, and later on, of course, the AIADMK got formed because of the differences between Karunanidhi and MGR. And I think it is also quite ironical that all the votaries of Tamil culture, and they say they are anti-Sanskrit and they are anti-Hindi, which are both Indian languages, but they continue to remain very, very fond of English. And so what they want to say that they do not like to mingle with their brother, but then they have a slave master to whom they remain faithful. So that's something that's a kind of contradiction I've never been able to understand. How can you be faithful to a slave master, to be faithful to a Caldwell, to a G.U. Pope, and even that De Nobili character and all these missionaries who come up with all kind of false tropes like the fable of Saint Thomas, and they even tell you that the Tiruvallur was actually a disciple of Saint Thomas, and all those kind of nonsense that they come up with, uh, and openly abuse Hindus as well. And even then, somehow in the caste matrix, they seem to fit in better. And even when somebody as popular as Rajinikanth comes in, he also runs away of some time, because he realizes that probably because of his Maratha background, he might not fit into the mix. How do you rationalize these contradictory streams of emotions?
I think from a philosophical point of view, it's because these ideologies or doctrines, so to say, are top down, as Guru Murthy sir would always put it. It's not a personal experience of people, so you can just say anything for the sake of saying, and what suits a particular point in time. So Hindi, anti-Hindi movement in the in the 60s and 70s was very popular because people just liked it, and it's a shared public memory. And I would, my personal view is that they have used from time to time different narratives and different stories. They've spun different aspects of Hinduism and nationalism to benefit their own agenda. And I think I will draw parallels between the Japanese fish theory of adding a shark to a fish tank so that the fish remain active. So there was nothing to bind at the individual level of humans who were coming together under an ideology, because it's not an experience. So as I said earlier, the Brahmins holding on to the administrative posts had nothing to do with people, like potters or agriculturists or farmers. But immediate next in line, people had some difference to it. So similarly, people who were coming together under one banner needed something to make them stick together, So one day it is anti-Hindi, one day it is anti-Hindu, one day it is something else. And they have created some sort of deracinated people in Tamil Nadu. I think the success of the movement can be measured by the way Brahminical hatred has spread across the state, one. Second is the way they have alienated a person's social identity as Hindu, and kind of stolen it and replaced it with the identity as Tamilan, Tamil. I am Tamil. So I'm Tamil, I'm not Hindu. So that's another narrative. So it was easy for people who didn't have that kind of very what should I say, a social identity that was intact with the rest of the people. So it was easy at an individual level to influence them. I think so. So anything that the top said, they just gobbled up. I think that was another thing. And the third thing is that they have used movie industry to a significant extent. And they've always kept saying that Tamil people, Tamil nationalism, Tamil supremacy. So essentially secessionist. If you heard it anywhere else, you would straight away think of what sections would apply. But in Tamil Nadu, it is accepted culture that you talk about breaking away, because the great C.N. Anadure himself said that, if we get, it's a Tamil Nadu that we get, or it's going to be Chudugadu, which means cemetery. So it was accepted from that time. It's a social conditioning of mind and accepting. So for them, who says what, and if it's those leaders who have trained them, say anything that they are willing to follow. So Rajinikanth's issue is partially that, and partially also a combination of factors that we could, get into later.
Okay, so let's talk about the parties as they are going at the moment. And
Yeah.
Of course, I do not have a great understanding of Tamil Nadu politics. I would like to learn it from you. And as I have been told that, okay, there are these combination of various castes, and the Tevars and Gaundars and some other major castes, they matter more than the rest. And now, of course, there is also the what is called the Dalit assertion. And the DMK seems to combine all kind of India haters like the evangelicals and the Islamists and such elements, and then they kind of provide them a cover. And right now, DMK is actually they are trying to uh, run some kind of a combo. Lately, they have been contesting only about 55 to 60% of the seats and leaving the rest to their allies, which are basically all those allies are basically all caste parties. So, in that sense, the Dravidian ideology already stands fractured. So, where is the DMK coming from in this particular election?
DMK has it's a historic election this time. It's a very precarious position for Tamil Nadu politics because except for BJP and one particular leader in DMK, everybody has everything else, everything at stake. DMK has everything at stake. Tamil Nadu governments have been alternating between DMK and AIADMK. At least the last at least last 2-3 decades. You have AIADMK now, and then after 5 years, DMK comes in, and then the spell was broken by Jayalalitha in 2016.
Right.
She came back to power, which I think was the lowest position for DMK. Although she won only by a thin margin, she still won, and that was against the the pattern up until then. So
yes, and nobody expected it also. I think almost all the exit polls and opinion polls, they said that DMK would win. I think going with the current, basically.
That's right. It's like it was easy, like in Kerala. Prediction was easy. This time, if it's LDF, which is the communist-led front, next time it is UDF, Congress-led front. So it was easy up until now, not like Orissa or West Bengal or other states. So that spell was broken by Jayalalitha, and that was also after a spectacular win in 2014 Lok Sabha elections. Remember how she wanted to have some say in the newly elected BJP government. So, in my personal opinion, DMK's lowest point was 2016 when they lost again to Jayalalitha. And I think from there, Karunanidhi was quite ill even then. And 2016 to 2019, Stalin has done a good job. And I think 2019 was the other high. So he's brought I think the highest moment is past. The tipping point is past for DMK. Because 2019 was the best time for him. A year before that, all the campaign against Modi. So 2019 was all against Modi. He promised to the Tamil people that he will bring Rahul Gandhi as prime minister. And Modi was all evil personified, in the country. So people who had nothing to do with business started talking about GST and all that. And the architect of that win was, you may know this, is a person called Sunil Kanugolu. Sunil was part of Prashant Kishore, and but Chennai-based person. And he broke away from Prashant Kishore's party and he joined DMK a year before. And he did actually two things really well. One is that creating that anti-Modi wave and also doing a good footwork at the booth level. But that was all. And the by-elections that happened along with the Lok Sabha elections in 2019, they couldn't snatch all of the seats that they wanted from Edapadiyar and bring him down. So Edapadiyar was able to sustain the government post the by-elections. And interestingly, what happened a few months since 2019 Lok Sabha elections was by-elections for two large constituencies, Nanganeri and Vikravandi, where AIADMK under Edapadi's leadership got thumping victory. That was humiliating defeat for DMK. And soon after that, Sunil came away from DMK, and he's with Edapadiyar now. So that would explain a newly decorated Edappadi, the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, a new figure, better campaign, better PR, and better groundwork, you can see AIADMK has woken up from their slumber. So, in my view, DMK has everything to lose. After Jayalalitha, with a person like Edappadi, Edappadi is green in people's mind with his famous prostration to Shashikala in 2017 when he was just made the chief minister. And from then, it's been a good journey. He's showed his statescraft, and he's an excellent administrator. And he has recently started focusing on his PR work as well. So DMK has everything to lose if they couldn't bring down a person like Edappadi, who's not from a huge political background or family or not a mass hero, and not a supremo of a party. And in the absence of a supremo, if Stalin couldn't come now, he's always going to be a chief minister in waiting. That's what he's called. And Edappadi, if he doesn't come back now, he has no locus standi as well, because he's now going to polls as the chief minister of the state who's delivered. And 5 years later, that is history. So they have everything to lose. And I wouldn't talk about the fringe parties unless you're interested, like Kamal Haasan and Sebastian.
Well, Kamal Haasan is, according to me, is a joke. So
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter. So Kamal Haasan, okay. But what about the other caste parties?
Caste parties, it's a very interesting thing to see that caste parties, although all these, the history of the caste assertion that I've spoken about over the decades, that has happened because of many factors in the state. Like, if one goes to the police station and needs some help, if they don't have a caste backing, that's going to be a problem. Their case wouldn't be registered. They wanted to be heard. They wanted reservations, and they wanted to have their own MLAs and MPs so that the community will be benefited. So you would actually see a surge of caste parties over the last decade. I think from 2010, if you look at, especially in the Kongu Belt. Kongu Belt is the western Tamil Nadu, which is predominantly Hindu majority area. It's a support base for BJP as well. And if you would see the number of welfare associations and organizations, so caste is more institutionalized today than it was in the past with respect to all factions. So Tamil Nadu being a state with 70% backward communities, with 20% SC/STs, most backward castes, so it's got an interesting dynamics when it comes to who has better consolidation. So there's a particular section called one years, who are the most powerful. It's the majority. It's about 14% of population is 1 years. And there is a party, as you know, Patali Makkal Kachi, under Dr. Ramdas.
Dr. Ramdas, yes.
As that was they are demanding 20%. 14% of people demanding 20%, knowing that won't be agreed, but sometimes that is used as a negotiation point. So their votes are somewhat consolidated. About 5% vote they can command in whichever front they go to. They're not focused. I think it's mostly northern part, but they're not focused when you look at the vote to seat transfer. They may not be the ideal party to give a lot of seats, because they add vote share in whichever constituencies they are present. They are spread across, but they do have about 5%, and the rest are spread across AIADMK and DMK. DMK is particularly not a Dalit party. They don't have their support. I would think about 31 seats, AIADMK has against the 9 seats DMK has in that belt. So SC/ST or Dalit support is normally always for AIADMK, but the margin has started coming down slightly. So it's something to watch out for in 2021. And in the Kongu Belt, as I said earlier, the Gaundars have been consolidating. Nadars have always been consolidating. And I think when Tamilisai was the president of BJP, she worked with Pon Radhakrishnan in Kanyakumari, and that was one of the reasons he could win earlier in the 2014 elections. So there's consolidation there. But one interesting thing you might note is this consolidation is not so much in terms of, it's not translated so much politically. People are part of different groups, but they do come together as they come together for social causes, because I think for the social fault lines that existed in the society, these political parties have tried to bring caste politics as a solution, which wasn't. So even after castes have come in, people have not consolidated. That is why you still see, not many individual parties like one for I couldn't say one for Nadar, but actor Sharat Kumar has formed a party, and it's predominantly that community. So you've not seen many of those leaders commanding a share of their vote. So that's why I said it's not consolidated yet as against Christian or Muslim votes.
Okay. But if you look at, though I usually do not like to count it in that manner, but then I think the Tamil Nadu imperative is that one has to count the caste. So you have a prominent Thevar leader like Paneerselvam, also in AIADMK. So you have this combination of Thevars, Gaundars, Nadars. If you leave out Banyar, and BJP now has what is called a Dalit president. You think BJP will count for much, or will it still command lower percentage than Nota?
No, BJP had 5% in the constituencies that they contested last time, and it's also because people didn't see BJP as a winning party, so they would have gone with the winning party. So I'm talking about a time when BJP stood on their own. And even in the last elections, unfortunately, votes from AIADMK did not transfer towards BJP, but all BJP votes went to AIADMK wherever they contested. So I think genuinely there will be about 10% of genuine vote share for BJP. And if they're going to, if they've identified, I think they've already identified about 60 constituencies that they're very strong. And having two Arunthadiyar leaders, El Murugan and Annamalai, can consolidate those votes. So those are easier to consolidate in the Kongu belt because they are pro-Hindu and pro-BJP. They voted for AIADMK so far because of Jayalalitha and also because they didn't see BJP as a winning party. But if they see BJP on the winning side, I think they'll get genuine votes, at least 10%.
Okay, so 10% votes can definitely translate into 10-15 seats.
Hopefully. I'm thinking 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Too early to say now. We don't even know how many seats they're going to
so
get.
what are the caste combinations that DMK commands?
DMK it's the same caste that's why I said about the consolidation earlier. The DMK has pretty much the same caste combination minus the Dalits votes, except a less than 1% Vidudalai Chiruthai Katchi of the famous Thirumavalavan. Other votes are they are a little behind AIADMK. If you look at Thevas, 60% of Thevar votes go to AIADMK. And same with Mudaliar. Most of Mudaliar votes go to AIADMK, and also Nadars and Gaundars. So if you look at the difference, it's AIADMK is always ahead of every caste. So there's no specific caste that always vote for. Where the difference is in the rural areas versus urban. So DMK has a rural weightage, an edge when compared to AIADMK. And AIADMK has an edge on the women candidates. If they feel women candidate, it's most likely that the AIADMK candidate will win.
Okay. So when you have this alternating kind of scenario, but every time, unlike Kerala, where there is a marginal shift of about 4 to 5%, the shifts that happen in the Tamil Nadu landscape are usually very big, so it's almost like winner takes all. So if the base is almost similar, then where does this change occur? Is there an aspirational class? Is there a very discerning voter which actually weighs up performance and then changes so that there are huge shifts elections to election, of course, which I think 2016 was the only year which bucked the trend. But is that so?
Absolutely right. There are two ways to look at it. One is, it is said in Tamil Nadu that all DMK votes are not, pure DMK votes. Many are anti-AIADMK votes. Similarly, many AIADMK votes are not purely AIADMK votes. They are anti-DMK. So, but if you still took the bare minimum, people have voted for each party during their lowest times. I think we're talking about 21, 22% each for each party. So you take 2022, about 44%, and then about 5% of the 1 year votes of Dr. Ramdas, and about 5% vote for BJP, and 4% for DMDK, and who else? 1% each of Vidudalai Chirthai, and so on. Kamal Haasan got 4% vote in the 2019 election, but I wouldn't add it here now because state elections are different. So if you looked at the party vote, it's only coming up to about 66% of the total polled votes, which means a huge percentage, 34%, 32 to 34% is the aspirational vote. So they could they've been voting in the hope. So the first one is, as I said, not pure vote because it's anti-DMK, anti-AIADMK votes. Second is that the general public who do not support any particular party, but they keep voting one party in the hope of getting a better, administration next time. So that is huge in Tamil Nadu.
Yes, that appears to be so from the results. I would also request my viewers to please start asking your questions because I will ask a few more questions and then we will go to the audience questions and answers. Of course, I would again request you to please like, subscribe, and share the video, as well as press the bell icon. And also, of course, we always value your contributions and support. So please continue with that. Okay, now let's come to the BJP's experiment with Dalit politics. And you had this recently, this yatra, of which I have different perceptions depending upon who one is talking to. Some people say that it was a huge success, and then there are others who said that it was a damp squib. So where does BJP fit into this matrix?
I think BJP's strategy has gone a sea of change after Dr. L. Murugan has come into Tamil Nadu politics, with the help of Annamalai as well now. And I'm talking about Annamalai alongside because he's someone to look out for. So when BJP wouldn't have liked to play caste politics at all, but as I said, the caste assertions and consolidations, and also for political protection or for whatever reasons, it's become an institutional it's become an institutional problem that no one can get rid of without radical changes, radical reforms. So I think reluctantly BJP has gotten into the caste politics equation, and picking up a Tamil god whom the Dalits would really closely associate with was a move in that direction. People have always been abusive of our gods in Tamil Nadu. And I was a little surprised by the way BJP sprung into action, because usually BJP would like to focus on development politics, and jumping into this and that to a person like L. Murugan, I didn't expect And I was pleasantly surprised that he picked up this cause and started the Vel Yatra. I initially suspected was I thought it was a premature action because the election was a few months away. But he had his own reasons. He he finished the yatra on a very important day of Lord Muruga, and with that yatra, I think two things they have achieved. BJP has achieved. One is that whatever has been happening for a long time and happening maybe in a sporadic manner was brought to common people. And the Vel Yatra was the first such initiative where BJP made some good inroads into the most remote villages in Tamil Nadu. So BJP has become a face in Tamil Nadu, and they use that opportunity to build on with with the farmers' protest, and probably just uh, revealing the truth about Modi government and what Modi ji does to Tamil Nadu people. And this was important because remember, that's the only state where we had anti-Modi wave. So they are using that as well. It's not just caste or based or religion based politics they did. They actually used the same forum and same gathering to talk about uh, development politics as well. But what they achieved is that acceptance from people who never associated themselves with BJP. And that's a very big thing for Tamil Nadu BJP, because BJP, like in the other states, Tamil Nadu also considered BJP to be an upper caste party. And although we did experiment with Dr. Tamilsai Soundarajan earlier, she was more like an old crop of politician. It's more about talks and things like that. But now we are going to caste leaders and talking to them about the need to consolidate and protect our deities, our beliefs, and whatnot. So I think the image of BJP being a Savarna party, an upper caste party, is slowly being broken. That's one achievement they did. The second achievement is, as I said, they have created inroads where now they can, send some good messages about the good work Modi ji has done.
Okay, that sounds quite encouraging that way. But just one note, I spent some time a couple of years ago in Sadhguru Ashram, and I had an occasion to go around and talk to people, and generally get a feeling of that. And I got a sense that there seems to be some kind of a resurgence of the original Tamil spiritual culture. Is that correct?
Yes, there is a resurgence in the state. It can be measured by a few things. One is the way people are crowding temples these days and ashrams, and ashram in particular, because you know what happened in 2004 when the Kanchi Shankaracharya was arrested, and the whole Nityananda saga. Ashram was a no-no place for people, and also, well, temple goers were always there. It's not as though it's a new thing, and that's what I spoke about earlier about E.V. Ramaswamy Nayakar's efforts in alienating people from their Hindu identity was successful as a social identity, but individually people were still following their rituals, their culture, and that is why there are still Hindus in DMK. So one thing the other factor is, as I said, is the way DMK is going back and forth with the whole Hindu narrative. Um, there is one truth that many people probably don't know about Karunanidhi, is that he's come to politics playing anti-Brahminical, and he's played it till his last day. But as a head of state, he has not been an anti-Brahminical person. His close bureaucracy would vouch for that. And many of his policies were not anti-Brahmin or anti-Hindu, so to say. So the back and forth, I think, is one factor that tells us that DMK is not very sure of their anti-Hindu movement. And I think that is because of the resurgence of Hinduism, Hindu Renaissance. And I would credit, H. Raja sir for his continuous efforts in the state, exposing Caldwell and Pope, based politics, and also continuously working among the masses and trying to educate them about their Hindu identity. And the other reason that I see is DMK's apologetic position from time to time. Recently, when Rajinikanth made a statement, not recently, maybe it was last January, he made a statement about E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar, and that didn't go very well with DMK as usual. So they tried to create a big agitation, demanded Rajinikanth to apologize, and Rajinikanth surprisingly did not apologize. He said he wouldn't, and then DMK had to bend backwards to please the public at that time, and they started defending for the first time. They started saying, no, we didn't garland Ram. We just threw a slipper at someone, and it just got caught in the idol and so on. So that, I think, is a sign of Hindu consolidation in the state, and I think BJP has sensed that. That is why they've gone into strong Hindu cause at the moment.
Okay, so before we go into the audience question and answer, I think since you are born and brought up in Kerala, a word about Kerala elections as well.
Kerala elections is much simpler compared to Tamil Nadu elections, because there are two different dark entities or dark agencies that grip both states. If one in Tamil Nadu, that is evangelical Christians, and they've been gripping the state for at least over 100 years. In Kerala, it is the jihadi nexus. So the leftist government today is almost fully under the control of jihadists. So if you look at Congress, it is Muslim League. If you look at communists, it is jihadists. So it's choosing either is not going to help Kerala state. But BJP still doesn't have the critical mass to win, and especially because the tactical voting and consolidation of vote to seat transfer in areas where Muslim majority, Christian majority. Unlike Tamil Nadu, Kerala has got concentrations of that, which can ensure seats in the assembly. And Hindus have not come to that stage yet. So at the moment, I think although BJP says they are coming to the elections to win, I don't see that as a possibility this year.
Okay, so you think the government will change again as it happens normally?
Usually, I would like it used to be that way all the time, but my gut feeling is that Pinarayi Vijayan is going to come back. It's not just because the local body elections that I'm saying this. It's because Congress is very weak in the state, and too much of negotiations with the Muslim League and the Christian factions within Congress. There are different Christian organizations, and there is no clear evidence of a leader emerging from the Congress front. And at this time, I think it's important that a good, like Ramesh Chinnathala is the Hindu face of Congress, and he's not going to be the face, even if he's the face if Congress comes to power. There'll be other people who will take over from him. And whereas Pinarayi Vijayan has done good PR as a firm chief minister.
Okay, so in spite of Rahul Gandhi in Kerala, Congress is Congress is likely to not do so well. So that's wonderful. So he's the man with the Midas touch. Whatever he touches turns to ashes. That's great.
True.
Okay, so on that note, let's move.
Unfortunately, Kerala could be slightly different to other states. Remember Kerala and Tamil Nadu, how they voted after the emergency. So Rahul Gandhi may not be so much of a star campaigner for BJP in Kerala.
Okay. Yeah, so you could be a star campaigner for Congress and maybe can take Congress down.
I wish.
Okay, let's move to the audience question to answer. We have a few.
Sure.
Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Subramaniam Kuruganti. God loves you. BS is common among Brahmins in Tamil Nadu. I, I don't know the context. Are you there?
Yes.
No, that was a question to you.
Which one? Sorry.
So
God
God
loves
loves
you.
you
That's, BS is
is
common
common
among
among
Brahmins. Sanjay. I
BS is
don't
common
get
among
the
Brahmins
concept.
in Tamil Nadu.
I've not heard that at all. God loves you. I thought it's more a Western concept.
Okay. Well, I think what he means to say is that the Brahmins there are anglicized.
That's right.
Okay. Amit Pandey, Madam, please come to these platforms more often. Also, Tamil Hindus must unite and kick away this Dravidian BS and work to bridge North-South divide.
Absolutely. And that's what BJP is trying to do. When Sanjay ji started the discussion, Sanjay ji mentioned about how Congress lost its ground, and it's because of the Dravidian ideology that sprout forth. Every time there's a nationalistic movement coming, then there's a Dravidian ideology that will be upheld. And they've been successful so far because of the collective hatred, which may not be the case anymore because people are looking up for positive changes in the state. So the recent campaign on anti-Hindi campaign didn't succeed. In fact, there are hundreds of memes that expose Stalin and Kanimuri and their group. It was actually some sort of a power struggle between Stalin and Kanimuri. This was Kanimuri trying to show Stalin her power. So it didn't take off. Like old times, the anti-Hindi campaign didn't take off, which is a good thing. So hopefully, the North-South divide will also go away with a nationalist party becoming firm on the ground.
And for all its Tamil pride narrative, Tamil Nadu remains the only state in the country where you could take a post-graduation degree without studying Tamil even for a day.
That's right.
The only one. There's no other state in the country
True.
that has that
Irony.
distinction.
And it's very common, isn't it? Like with the DMK, they own about 40 schools, central schools, where they teach Hindi, and all their children, all the leaders, first layer and second layer leaders, third layer leaders, all their leaders send their children to these schools where their children can learn Hindi and Sanskrit. Whereas they ask people not to learn Tamil. And in fact, when we say that Hindi should be, or other Indian languages should be taught as a choice, it should be given to people. They say it is it's enforcing something on us. Whereas when they say you should not learn a third language, that's not enforcement of any principle. That's the irony, and people gobble that up.
Whereas we have a significant population of both the Telugus as well as Kannadigas in Tamil Nadu.
That's right. Telugu's, huge population, and also Malayalis. So it's good people learn different language. They would want to learn their own mother tongue. So it's not fair to say you shouldn't learn a language. It's fair to say that you don't force a language on me, but I should have a choice.
But they haven't made even Tamil compulsory.
Sorry?
They haven't made even Tamil a compulsory
Exactly.
language.
Exactly. And the level of Tamil is has fallen so much that the word, the letter Ra, which is a very unique Tamil asset, is gone from Tamil dialect. You speak to average Tamil people today, it is Tamil. And Kanimuri is Kanimoli. It's not Kanimuri anymore. That's what they've done to Tamil.
Okay.
When
Next
a person
question.
like Modi ji, quotes Tirukural or Ragananur or any other, sacred text from Tamil, they say he's pronouncing it badly and he's, destroying the language.
Call that hypocrisy.
Exactly.
Is that true, Ganesh Motukuri? Is that true? Tamil Muslims started agitating against Tamil language and started demanding Urdu. Do Muslims play important role in Coimbatore area?
Not specifically in Coimbatore. The Gaundars are quite strong there. Gaundars and Arunthadiyars. And they are pro-Hindu. Coimbatore, yes, a particular district, it's got a good concentration of Muslims. But Muslims are spread in other districts more than there. But it's true that they did demand Urdu.
And that was not opposed by DMK.
No. Urdu is acceptable as English is acceptable.
Urdu is acceptable, Hindi is not acceptable. That's wonderful. Oh my God. Sanatani first, role of AIADMK in Hindu discourses in TN politics.
I think they have played a very good role in Makkal Kachi. It's an activist group. It's more like an activist group, and they have their helplines and they reach out to people quickly, and they take up all Hindu causes, and they are present in the media as well as on the ground. They've done a good job in bringing Hindu awareness, that social identity as Hindu. And one important thing to point to notice here is earlier there were there were so many I would say different takes on Hinduism. Like Brahminical Hinduism is different from Dalit Hinduism. Sometimes Dalits are not Hindus, but what has happened of late is that after the Hindu Makkal Kachi has come into prominence, is that they come and help to all kinds of people, all castes. Recently, there was an issue of a Vedic scholar, a Vedic priest, chanting Vedas in his house, and he had his neighbors, the person in the front and on the side were Muslims, and they objected to him chanting his Vedas. And all people who came in rescue were not Brahmins, and they were there for 5 to 6 hours arguing and trying to resolve the issue, and they did resolve it well. And even online, you see a lot of non-Brahmins coming, asking questions about why this hate towards Brahmins, and we're all united across, across caste. So I think the success so far in Hindu Renaissance is that we are able to bring in across caste ethnic identity of Hindu. I think it's just begun, but it's a good journey. Well begun.
Okay. Will Tamil Nadu be fortress of Hindutva in upcoming 10 years?
I don't think so for Hindutva, so to say, because Hindus are already about 90% of the state. But I think BJP will use Hindutva to come to power, rightly so. But once they come, they will focus more on the development, like how they do at the center. So Tamil Nadu will be a very different story if BJP came to power in the next 5 years. And this was not a possibility until I saw the work of L. Murugan and people like Annamalai. Annamalai has brought in a lot of hope to people. That winnability thing has been added now as a future chief minister. So I'm thinking 2026 shouldn't be too much of a surprise if BJP made a good, good coming. And then, but no Hindutva, not so much Hindutva. But there will be renaissance. I think there's one particular aspect that we might need to ponder on. It's something that people like H. Raja had been, continuously fighting for Of about 37,000 odd temples in the state, some 10,000 odd temples are missing. This question was asked in the Legislative Assembly directly to Jayalalitha, and she didn't accept it. And then she had to do a bit of homework on it, and she came back and agreed. So anybody who comes into power, next will have to focus on this aspect of reclaiming our temples. And once we reclaim our temples, apparently we would have enough money to educate every single Hindu in the state. That happens, and that is real Hindutva renaissance, I would think.
Okay, that's right. Next one. Subramaniam Kuruganti again. Ma'am, the dichotomy between atheist DMK and religious Tamil Nadu folks still baffles me. Postscript, Telugu here and lived in Chennai for 3 years. Please explain.
Yes, the dichotomy or what baffles people is the fact that the religious Tamil people are still part of DMK. There are Brahmins who strongly root for DMK, and that's been an issue. And as I said, it's in the past that some of the things that DMK has done or has not done have contributed to Hindu causes in different ways. For example, the ordinance that they brought in, allowing, this is not a Hindu thing, but it's more from the Brahmin side. So it's a question more on the Brahmin side. They allowed non-Brahmins to be priests. They allowed some 200 plus people. There was an ordinance, and that wasn't enforced at all. So the DMK party didn't take any interest in enforcing it, and that was probably seen as a good gesture. And right after the 2011 assembly election debacle, Karunanidhi scripted a TV serial on a Vaishnavite saint, Ramanujacharya, and Vaishnavites loved it. And as I said, people in the administration, in government offices, have felt better with the DMK administration. And as I said, the collective experience has not been that bad for them. In fact, when Jayalalitha arrested Shankaracharya in 2004, we've all felt that Karunanidhi wouldn't have done such a thing. So there is that perception, and that's one of the reasons why Hindus are still part of DMK. And they also, a lot of this ideological war is probably not coming down to the masses. It's like a thick crowd standing, and it's raining, and the drops are not reaching down, and people who are short are not getting it.
Okay. This is another question on the Hindu Renaissance. Is that do you see this movement getting strong enough to spread in states like Kerala in near future?
There is Hindu Renaissance in Kerala. In fact, Kerala has got a much stronger RSS presence. And it's only thanks to RSS that Kerala is still, majority Hindu state, even though it's a very marginal majority. And it's going to go away in the next few years because 4 or 5 out of every 10 children under 10 are Muslims. But I wouldn't say it is. There is no Renaissance in Kerala as well, because I remember going to temple like Guruvayur temple in my childhood. You wait for half an hour or 20 minutes, you get your darshan, you come out. Now you have to stand 4 to 6 hours in a line, and any temple that you go to is overcrowded, and there's increasing following for spiritual leaders in the state. And the growth of BJP, although it is not exponential, it's been growing. And BJP has more obstacles in Kerala because they are targeted directly. Today, BJP is a strong opposition party. There's no TV debate that you see without a BJP representative being there. So the Renaissance has already started happening in Kerala. But these two states have an issue with politicizing Hinduism. So they think Hindu identity is separate and politics is separate. So when they get that message is when probably you will see the kind of renaissance that you would want, political uprisal.
Okay, next one. Rahul Kumar, I am new to this channel. I think it too far to revive actually thousand values. I may sound pessimistic, but it's going to get worse, and the whole Hinduism won't survive more than 500 years. That's too long a time scale. We don't know whether this whole earth will survive 500 years. So,
That's right. Is that a
okay.
question to me or to you, Sanjay ji? That's
I think so. So I think that's too much of a speculation. I think let's keep our timelines more like 20 years, 30 years. That's I think
yes, and
we
that's
can
one
deal
thing.
with in our own lifetimes.
Yes, and that's one thing that people often wonder about, Hindu survival, and many online fora like not Twitter but other like Quora and other discussion or chat rooms where people do raise this question of Hindu TFR versus Muslim and so on. But I think a lot of initiatives taken by Modi ji are in the right direction. This is controversial. People don't like to hear this, but I do think that many of the things that he is planting today will have effect 10 or 15 years or 20 years down the line. Like scholarship for Muslim women, and also a lot of help in educating Muslim women. And in my experience, brought up in Kerala, I know the difference between an educated Muslim woman versus a non-educated Muslim woman. So you're talking about a difference of 7 versus, or educated versus non-educated, 1 or 2 versus 7 or 8 children.
Right. Yeah. So that's something that often people complain about, but I think you are right on the money there. Sanatani, role of Sadhguru in awakening Hindus in Tamil Nadu.
I think he has played a very significant role. He has brought it back to the masses. What used to be Guru Acharya as something that only the ritualistic Vedic Brahmins did, has become a mass movement. Anybody can follow yoga. Anybody can learn yoga. Anybody can, go worship Shiva in Guru's ashram and learn principles, philosophical aspects of or esoteric aspects of Hinduism. I think that's what he has brought to Tamil people, and at a huge personal risk because of the evangelical nexus in the state and all that he has faced over these years. He's still there, which shows it works both ways. He has revived Hindus, masses of them, and they've also given him support, which is why he's still there.
I know. I think one of the biggest evangelicals is right there in Coimbatore, and he's challenged them that what's this called, Karuna or something.
Yes. And an elephant died some 6 kilometers away from Guru's ashram. Somehow, Sadhguru was responsible for it.
Oh, yes. I know these evangelicals, they are past masters in devising narratives. But then we are getting wiser and we are taking them on everywhere.
That's right.
JBK, here in UK, my Tamil friends are hopelessly pessimistic towards nationalistic thoughts, even Tambrams. What's your advice to bring about a change?
Tough question. I think what I would suggest is applying critical thinking, asking the right questions. And for example, if someone says in Tamil Nadu, people are saying, "Oh, don't touch AIADMK because they are BJP's Binami, BJP's B team, and so on," or "Don't touch." So as if it's already established that BJP is a bad thing, and so AIADMK now being a Binami of BJP is a very bad thing. So I would stop them and ask, so what is wrong with BJP? So I think questioning and letting them explore themselves would be a good start, rather than loading them with a number of things that have gone wrong in the country, and why it's important to have a nationalistic leader leading you. I would definitely ask questions. I would ask uncomfortable questions about pink revolution. I would ask uncomfortable questions about FCRA violations, the number of agencies, NGOs registered. And I would see if they have answers to all that. I think questioning them, their logic, is a good way to start a conversation.
Right. Why does BJP not have free Hindu temples agenda?
I do hope that they do have the agenda, because the chairman of the manifesto committee in Tamil Nadu is H. Raja, and he has been the chairman for some time, and that's has been his mission in life, to free temples. So that's definitely going to be. So he would, because he is also an advocate, he would word it carefully so that the government can do whatever is legally possible.
All right. Next one. Karan Patra, listening to Sreevidya Ji for the first time. Two things: well read and calm. Thank you for coming here and enlightening us. That's high praise for you, Sreevidya Ji.
Thank you.
Nanda Kumara Subbaraman. Dear ma'am, shouldn't BJP be contesting alone like in Kerala or AP or Telangana, where they are nowhere near power yet, even if only 50-60 constituencies? More so, like you said, ADMK votes don't transfer to BJP.
That's right. It's true. It's a good question, and we did go solo in 2016, and we did well, actually, compared to all the efforts that were put in before, and the supportive framework, or the footwork, so to say, at the booth level to transfer vote to seat. But this election is very different. BJP at the center doesn't see this election as in isolation. They see this as far as 2024. As far as I could guess, 2024, they want to know what combinations will work in the 2024 Lok Sabha elections. They don't want Congress to have many seats, and they want to consolidate anti-Congress at the center, anti-Congress seats. So they will want to stick with a trusted and reliable partner like AIADMK. So if they went solo now, that means they may not be getting that support that they need in 2024. The other thing is that, all of us probably know this, or we can guess that Amit Shah must be working on a set of tough bills, and we will need AIADMK support in the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha to pass those bills. So we will certainly need their support at the moment. And more than anything else, other than these two reasons, I think BJP has a stronger reason to contain DMK's growth. Because as I said earlier, from a cadre party, it became a corporate with the Marans at the hems. And when Murasali Maran died, it became a dynasty politics. So what Karunanidhi used to say, that party is my family. Now today, family, my family is party. So BJP has reasons to stop them, and for that BJP can't do it alone, splitting anti-DMK votes. So this election, I think they are justified in going solo to preserve anti-DMK votes, and also to support AIADMK, form a government, so that they can use them in the upcoming, passing upcoming bills in the parliament, and also 2024 to check Congress.
You mean they're justified in going solo or not going solo?
They're justified now, yes. Because
In not
going
going.
solo, as a party, they can, they can probably grow.
No. I'm asking for clarification because you said that they are justified in going solo. I thought you wanted
No,
to say
sorry,
not going solo.
sorry, mistake. They're justified in going along with AIADMK. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Nanda Kumar, what do you suggest should be BJP's strategy to counter the Aryan/Hindi imposition Sanghi hate strategy that DMK would play? Just supplementary to this, now that Aryan invasion theory has been almost completely debunked. Has that filtered into the Dravidian movement somewhat?
No.
Or they still
Not
continue to stick to the dogma?
You got to announce that award in Tamil Nadu.
Okay. So how do we do that?
Good question. We need to probably use people like Madan Ravichandran. Madan Ravichandran has recently come into BJP, and he's a media celebrity. He's made up, his own. I think he's made his own YouTube channel now, which is heavily subscribed. I think if he posts a video in 24 hours, it's seen by about 200,000 people. So Madan Ravichandran is the right person to go to, and because he's already recently gone and challenged a Shaiva Siddhantist lady who appears to be a Christian, who has he's gone and challenged her on the Aryan Dravidian theory, and he has quoted Ambedkar and also given some good arguments there. And I think he is the most powerful person to take that
If you
message.
can put us in touch with him, and we would
Sure.
probably announce it in Tamil Nadu as well. Yes,
Sure.
why
I'm
not?
not in touch with him, but I can find somebody who is in touch with him.
Yes, okay. We'll definitely announce it in Tamil Nadu.
And also the
Does
other
BJP?
person who has been talking about Aryan Dravidian theory is Maridas. You may have heard that name, Maridas.
Yes.
Yes, Maridas is another person.
I've seen his videos. I think he also runs a very popular YouTube channel.
That's right.
Okay. I think the original question was somewhat different. Let's have that question back. I said, what should be the BJP strategy to counter the Aryan Hindu imposition, Sanghi hate strategy that DMK would play?
I think BJP has to reach out to the masses the way they have started doing now. You can see Murugan or Annamalai or other leaders going to the remotest of villages and talking to people in simple language and using examples and stories, and they are now telling the story of BJP. So along with that, they should talk about, they should bring in this ideological war into their narrative. It's hard for them because it's too much to expect in the next 4 or 5 years, but they should include it in their strategy to include a few things when they cover every event, every mass interaction. H. Raja does that, and he's been doing that for so many years in the state. But he's been. I've heard him. I've heard that he would talk to 50 to 100 people in a village for about 4 or 5 hours, and he would say all these things, and he keeps on repeating. But I think he needs more feet and mouth. So that's probably the one way to go. The other is, as I said, BJP should use people like Maridas and Madan Ravichandran. Continue, not as though they are not doing it, but they have a lot of young people following them. And young people, about 9 lakhs of them are new voters. And Maridas was actually, a few people came together to organize these new voters, and they were talking. Maridas was a regular speaker in that forum. So they can make a lot of difference because they understand this. They go talk to, a lot of people around, and making use of the social media, which people are increasingly using these days.
Right. Okay, next one. Does BJP have a clear-cut Hindu cultural agenda? I think you've already answered that question.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. With if you're talking about Tamil Nadu, yes.
Rohan Srivastava, this whole Dravidian versus Aryan theory is so hyped and put into the brain of each and everyone that even doctors believe in that, and even Sadhguru was saying the same. What to do? Your opinion. Well, we've already done it. 2.1 crore is not a small amount.
That's right.
Anybody who can prove that, we give him scientifically, of course. There are the scientific rules for proving a theory. This theory has never been proved. It's just been a dogma.
That will have to reach the textbooks as well, I think.
So I think if you announce an award of 2.1 crore, a lot of people would get interested in finding out about it and trying to prove it.
True. At
Tamil
least
Nadu is the right
we
place.
should taunt them. We should taunt them.
Yes, I keep taunting them all the time. Keep taunting them all the time. Okay. Have we come to the end of the questions? Okay, that we come to the end of the question answers, and I really very sincerely thank you, Sreevidya Ji, for staying up almost throughout the night. I think your night is completely spoiled.
No
And
worries.
next time we meet, I think we'll try and keep a better time so that you're not disturbed that badly. And thank you very much, all the viewers, and thank you so much, Sreevidya Ji, for coming to the channel and with
Thank you,
so much
Sanjay.
of personal inconvenience.
Thank you,
Thank
Sanjay.
you.
You're someone whom I really adore, and having had a chance to talk to you and through this Jaipur Dialogues, because first time when I saw Jaipur Dialogues, I was thinking, oh, we need thought leading bodies like this, organizations like this. We need to set the right narrative, and that's what I was going to also ask the viewers is, please contribute to Jaipur Dialogues. Sanjay ji didn't ask me to say this, but please do subscribe and also contribute. I'm saying contribute regularly because we all want to play our part in dharma. I'm apolitical. I don't believe in any political ideology because I think ideologies are, imported ideas. I believe in dharma, swadharma, pauradharma, rashtradharma, and anything that supports that, we need to support. So please think of contributing regularly, even if it's smaller amount. The other thing is please do buy Unbreaking India. I've bought my book, but it's on its way. I don't know. I can't wait to get my hand onto it. And why I say you should have a book is not a book. If you have two children, buy two books because this is for posterity. And sometimes we wonder, we get really carried away. When you look at, I've been an online warrior for several years. Since the Godhra riots, I've been following Narendra Modi, and I've been I would sometimes say something positive about Narendra Modi, and there'll be 256 negative comments underneath. So I've come from those times, and I know how difficult it is for people to get through with the ups and downs of emotion every day that we go through, especially in social media. You get one problem, you feel emotional about it, you challenge Modi ji, and then you go to the next problem, and then it goes up and down and up and down. But often we don't get the opportunity to step back and see what the pattern is, what's coming out, and what is really causing this, and understanding the root cause of the issue. Therefore, our thought process is guided in the right direction towards solution. So if you're emotional, it's good that you share with somebody and it dies down, just like the aroma from an incense stick dies away and it's just a memory afterwards. So what I suggest is, buy this book because Sanjay ji has detailed about some of these patterns that have emerged, the causes behind it. Like, for example, the Bangalore riots, how it happened. And it's really interesting to, not that I've read the book, but I, from what he has discussed before, I know that that helps us understand to take that step behind and see the pattern behind, what seemingly upsets us. And I think because Vivek Agnihotri did that, today we have urban Naxals. They were so unnoticed before. So it's important that we buy that book for our children, for ourselves, for our friends. Please do that. And it's going to be a great addition to your library. In fact, I ordered this to my father-in-law in Madras, and I didn't give him a chance to read it. I instantly got them to send it to me. That's my
Okay.
appeal.
Thank you for kind words, Sreevidya Ji. And I think while we were talking, I think one more question has come up, so might as well take that as
Sure.
also. It's K. Manjunath. If possible, put a prize on date of birth, date, and death date of Jesus. I think is being done by a lot other people as well. So I don't know whether that should be our our focus. Thank you once again, Sreevidya ji. Wonderful having you. And I think we will have you many more times. As the
Thank you.
elections going to heat up, then we will
That's
request you many more times, and
yes.
we will try and change this time to a better time maybe next
No, you
time.
don't need to. I can keep awake for a good cause. And remember, we've not discussed Rajinikanth, so we could certainly talk about what it means.
Yes,
Tamil
we could
Nadu.
discuss Rajinikanth only in passing. Yes. So thank you once again. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.